Hello everyone and welcome to the Gunpla Network. I'm the Spicer, and after reviewing the high-grade Cosmic Era Aestrike, Freedom, and Strike Freedom, we thought it'd be fun to make a little video where I rank all of them against each other and talk about, maybe in a light sense, the pros and the cons and kind of where they stand in comparison. Now, of course, all of these were reviewed courtesy of Canadian Gundam, so of course go check them out. Don't forget to use the promo code Gunpla Network to save yourself 10% off. And for the full reviews, you can find them on our channel, so if you have questions or want to know more about each individual kit, you can find that information in those reviews or comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them as well. Now, will it be the oldest of the group in the high-grade Cosmic Era Aestrike, or does simplicity win out? Is it embodying the line in the ways that the Gundam and the Dagger do, or is it just too simple and doesn't really bring enough to the table? Maybe it's perfect, maybe it's not, maybe it's somewhere in between, or maybe the Freedom is the best, or maybe the Freedom is the worst. For sure it is the most iconic, but it does have its own set of flaws, and, well, it does have its own benefits as well. We talk about them in the review, but will it stand up to the Aestrike and the Strike Freedom? And then there's, of course, the pinnacle of Kira's mobile suits, the high-grade Cosmic Era Strike Freedom. Does the flashy, gold-framed, dragoon-laden mobile suit have what it takes to beat the other two out, or is it too much gimmick and not enough kit? Well, let's take a look and see. Starting at the bottom of the list, unfortunately, with the high-grade Cosmic Era Freedom Gundam. If you've watched the reviews, you probably saw this one coming, unfortunately, but it's okay. It's not a terrible kit, but it's just not the best version of the Freedom. Now, of course, in 1/44 scale, you pretty much only have this. I think there's an older Freedom that's probably worse, and then the real grade Freedom. And while some of the gimmicks work better here, not all of them do. The real grade is going to have a lot more surface detail, but it's also going to have a usable beam rifle and shield, as the beam rifle is a little too heavy for the wrist peg here, and the shield only has a handle, so you can attach it to the arm, and it doesn't stay on the handle, or the handle doesn't stay in the hand terribly well. And then, again, the wrist peg is weak. Can these things be fixed? Yes, they can. However, this is not a problem that persists in the Aestrike or the Strike Freedom. So it's a little unfortunate the most iconic of the trio gets left out in the cold. Now, of course, that being said, it's not terrible. Visually, it's pretty screen accurate, and you do have some cool posability options with the beam sabers. While I'm still not a huge fan of the proportions of the side skirts, or I think the head, the chest, and the shoulders, overall, it's not terrible, and if you're a huge Freedom head, this is going to be something you're likely going to want to pick up. However, if you are a big Freedom fan, I would definitely advise going with one of the Master Grades, as they will be significantly better than both this and the real grade. In the second place slot, we have the high-grade Cosmic Era Strike Freedom Gundam. If you've watched my reviews, you likely know that this is going to be the case. However, this actually gave the Aestrike a very good run for its money, much more than I thought it was going to. Overall, its accessories pretty much all work with the exception of the long rifle, which, while is disappointing, is not all that surprising since the Master Grade has a very similar issue. There's a weird finicky part on the chest that doesn't need to be separate, but is at least pretty movable and falls out easily, most likely to facilitate the long rifle or to kind of hide the head for deactivated mode. I'm not 100% sure. The same piece moves on the Master Grade, but it's actually connected, so it doesn't fall off all the time like it does here. A little bit of super glue has since fixed this, though. There's a lot of potential here, and it fixes all of the proportional issues I had with the Freedom. However, it doesn't hit the same level the Aestrike does. It doesn't strike the same chord or have the same influence that the Aestrike does, or the same shelf presence, if you will. Sure, you can spread the wings out and everything, and while it does have a good sculpt, it doesn't hit me the same way looking at it as the Aestrike does, and I'm really not sure I've been able to articulate as to why, unfortunately. The Dragoons are cool, but it's kind of a missed opportunity since you really don't have any kind of stand or anything to use with them. If you have a bunch of little extra stands, sure, you can use that. It just feels unfortunate that that's kind of the case. The long rifle doesn't really work all that well, but the beam rifles individually work fine, and the stickers aren't too bad on them. They haven't peeled up yet on mine. The sliding gimmick to house those on the side skirt works pretty well. Not as well as the Master Grade, but it's pretty sufficient. And we come back to the beam sabers being the most effective accessory on this kit and still look the best in my opinion. And that leaves us with the Aestrike in number 1. And while it is the oldest, I feel like it captures the idea of what the Cosmic Era line is all about. It's solid, it's consistent, and while it's simple, it executes every single portion of it well. The stickers, which would be the most problematic part for most people, are actually done incredibly well. The ones on the wings I was actually very concerned about, but as you can see here, they're not peeling up. You do have the little kind of spacing in the front, but that's more of a me issue than it is the stickers. And the only other one you have is on the shield, and I'm just going to let it kind of spin and not say exactly which one it is to see if you can find out which bit it is. But overall, that hasn't peeled up either. It's simple, it's effective, much like the Gundam and the dagger. It just does what it does well, and it looks incredibly, forgive the pun, striking. Whatever they did, and I think it's maybe the legs are a little thinner and slender and longer, and the torso's a little bit taller. The head is just the right size. The shoulders are not too big. They're not too small. Everything is proportionally the exact way it needs to be for this to be probably one of the most visually striking strike Gundams to come out. And while I know the entry grade's very similar to this at a lower price point, it stands to the fact that these are probably the best looking strikes. You of course have the master grades, and of course they're much more complex and much bigger, but there's something about this high grade, and I cannot articulate it, but it just hits different. And I hate to use that expression, but it just does. I can't really explain it any more than that. It's just the proportions, the sculpt, everything working the way it needs to. And while you have just your standard Gundam loadout, you honestly have more posing options here, unfortunately, than you do with the other ones in the Freedom and the Strike Freedom, which are infinitely more complex in terms of their accessories. You don't have the rail cannons here, but honestly, the rail cannons are more of a problem most of the time on the other two kits. The beam rifle is super solid here and fits pretty much well. It's maybe a hair small, but it works just fine. Whereas the Freedom doesn't really hold its beam rifle all that well. And then the long rifle on the Strike Freedom doesn't work 100% either. The beam sabers work great, as does the shield. Overall, this one is not only the most posable in terms of actual usable posability, it's the most centered as well. You can get all kinds of ground poses, nothing too crazy, but you can do a lot more on the ground than you can with the other two. Overall, I think this is where most people would land, but let me know in the comments. Am I wrong? Do I have this backwards? Am I missing something on one of the other kits? Let me know, and I'll do my best to respond. If you have any questions as well, I'll do my best to answer them. If you have any thoughts other than those, though, leave them in the comments. I'll take a look at them, and if I've got my 2 cents, I'll throw it in. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I've been the Spicer here for the Gunpla Network. Please stay safe and keep on building.